bounce in the market. The BOG raised interest rates and the market has responded favorably, but can we trust this bounce, guys? I've got some serious setups for you on some big altcoins here, including longs and some shorts that are going to tide you over for the next couple of days. So massive show ahead here. Let's go. Remember, as always, hit that like, hit the bell, and hit the subscribe. You might notice that this is a pre-recorded stream. The reason being, I'm doing some traveling today, but I want to make sure that you guys are well covered for this weekend for all sorts of events with these tokens. So guys, let's get into this. I'm covering some absolute big ones here for you guys. Now, Banter Bubbles coming alive. Look at this, Hype and ASTER. I've just told the Discord that I am longing the twins at the moment. A little bit of a degen play, and I'm going to take you through those charts because the oscillators were looking pretty bullish. So I'm going to show you why I think these things can push a little bit higher today. And then all around, everything is nice and green after a very choppy day yesterday. It was an absolute dog show, really, to sum it up. But if you look at Bitcoin here on the 2 hour, you can see what these guys have actually effectively done to us over the last couple of days. Look at this. On the 10th of December, we pumped it, we dumped it. We pumped it again on the 15th, they dumped it. We pumped it again, they dumped it again, and they dumped it. So guys, it's been an absolute mess, unless you like short-term moves and you are enjoying the chop. But for those of you that like sort of bigger moves, and it's been a very frustrating last couple of days. Now, what do we do with BTC? So there's a couple of things that are of interest to me. Number one, the question we are all asking is, can we trust this move? Now, obviously, we all have a little bit of PTSD with things pushing into resistance zones and then completely falling over. So I just want to point out a couple of big zones for you guys that I'm interested in for either a TP on any longs that you have and possible hedge short areas. Now, the first big one for me is going to be 89.5 for BTC. Why is this interesting here today? VWAP from the highs. I've got the 0.5, and it's going to be another retest of this rising trend over here. So that is the simplest first rejection zone, 89.5. Now, that region as a whole is super interesting because we can see we got the highs from the weekend. Saturday the 13th was an interesting zone for us, and they might want to come and flush that area out, and that ties into our 618 as well. So the region 89.5 into 90,600, that entire region can be considered quite a bear zone for now. Okay, now obviously we don't know what we're going to get in terms of the US Open later on today, but let's say for the sake of argument that the US decides to pump things a little bit harder. Well, the big levels then for us are going to be 92,400. That's a beautiful tie-in with the liquidation heat map, as well as the 786 and some horizontals. And then I've got a massive danger zone here, guys, 94K. If we shoot into that level this weekend, please, I'm telling you, 94K is a big danger zone. Be super careful up there. If you start longing again or you're longing late, be careful at that 94K region. Now, what do we do for the interim downside? What happens if the market falls over? So let me just tell you my current view at the moment, and this is obviously applicable now for the next day or so. So what we're getting a picture of on a lot of these altcoins is we're seeing 4-hour bullish divergence coming into play. Some of them are printing double bullish divergence. For example, 𝗬𝗰 that I'm going to show you. Now, under normal conditions, this should tell us that we should be trending up a little bit higher. So I would say net up over the next couple of days using the information that we have in front of us. So what does this tell us? It tells us, look, we still got to be careful at certain key areas, and on the lower time frames, we can look for resistances and rejection zones that we could possibly look for shorts on, head short in those areas, but potentially we're looking at net higher. Okay, so that is the picture that I'm seeing at the moment. So I'm locked in a net long position at the moment, and I'm going to take you guys through quite a few options here. So with that in mind, if we are looking for net higher, the first thing we can do is start saying, okay, where are our major local bull zones? Where can we get some potential bounces if we do get a short-term dip in the US market today? So I just want to highlight a couple of levels for you guys on BTC quickly if there is a quick sell-off and then possibly a pump. So all you need to do, and this is applicable on all your alts, is you're going to drop your VWAPs under the lows there, and you're going to pull your fibs to the highs, lows to the highs, and you want to identify your local bull zone. Now, the local bull zone is the one where you most likely get a VWAP and a fib tying in together. Sometimes you get an order block as well, and you're going to use that as your first line of decent support. Now, obviously, we can get bounces before that, but that is the big zone for me. So if we lose that VWAP at around 86,350, 86,400. If we start losing that VWAP, we might be in for a little bit more downside. Things could get a little bit sad for us. So generally, we want to track the VWAP as a momentum play. And as long as that thing's going up and we bouncing off it along the way, we tend to be happy. Okay, so that is what we're going to look for on the lower time frame. So your level is 86, call it 86.4 at the moment. That is bull zone number one. Then naturally, I do want to show you guys, like, we haven't tapped our 786 fib. You guys know my sentiments and my thoughts on BTC not tapping these big fibs. So 83,585. This is a zone, this is a long zone for me later on if we do, or if the market goes against us. Let's say the market does roll over pretty hard, 83,580, guys. That is still a region that I want to see tapped, and you can see that ties in with this weekend low from the 22nd of November, still untapped, okay, at this point in time. So that is your current BTC situation. That is what I'm looking at the moment. And then just tapping into, obviously, some of the news. We've had quite a volatile week, and the big one was the job numbers that came out on Tuesday. Then we had CPI on Thursday, and we've had the Bank of Japan raising their interest rates, which everyone was expecting in the end, coming out now earlier today, and that has resulted in a market pump. Okay, so the big news is they've done exactly as expected. Their new rate is now 0.75%. And here's the summary. Bank of Japan, real interest rates are expected to remain at significantly low levels. That's interesting. Economy has recovered moderately through some weakness as seen, and wage and inflation likely to continue rising moderately together. Okay, labor market conditions have continued to be tight. Even after a rate change, monetary environment remains accommodative and supports the economy. I don't know, guys, what you make of that, but it doesn't sound like the end of the world at the moment, especially in the short term. And maybe the market is obviously going to enjoy a little bit of that. Now, there's now a 28% chance, and this is a link to our CPI data from the other day. There's now a 28% chance of another 25% basis point cut at the Jan 28th Fed meeting. Okay, so however, the base case remains no change, 70% as investors await more data. But that is obviously a bullish sign for us on the market, because yesterday we had really great CPI numbers. Now, there was a debate as to if we could believe those numbers or not, and Spencer dropped a note here saying, look at October, November. So it looks like they left out a couple of things, or they made a couple of estimates, and maybe the CPI, the true CPI numbers weren't exactly what they were saying. And that also plays into that big rejection that we saw yesterday when the market started digesting some of those details. Okay, so let's talk a couple of macro charts and things like that. Here's oil at the moment. We know Trump is trying to bring the oil price down, and this might obviously affect this chart in front of you. So I think we get a bounce at around 49.4. This is the weekly US oil chart. So I'm still looking for a long at 49.4 if they do drop the price a little bit lower. Then in terms of the silver, I started that short yesterday that I told you guys about. No change. It is looking bearish on the oscillator. It is a bit of a cheeky play, but look out for some action up here, something like that. Maybe a fake out there through the upside, maybe a tap into that 2618 fib. But I have started a short position on silver at the moment. You can see it is starting to tick over a little bit here. Now, in terms of some of the stocks, you can see some of the stocks that we are trading. MicroStrategy, that is going to gap up today. Now, hopefully that is sustainable. If the crypto market keeps pumping and the market enjoys the news, and perhaps our PCE inflation that's coming out later today is favorable, then we should continue this move to the upside. Okay, so looking for a gap up there on Microsoft, looking for a gap up on Circle as well. So that is a good start. Okay, decent move then from those guys. Now, in terms of the high time frame stuff, guys, remember the big zones on BTC. There's no actual changes here. Our major support is got to be this lower band, 79 into 75K. That is a huge level for us. Are we going to hit that zone? Again, I cannot say for sure, but what we can do is look at all these big rejection zones, and every time BTC runs into those areas, that is where you are looking for some kind of rollover. So right now, that is obviously getting rejected at our main zone. Again, if you want to zoom out and you're trading spot and stuff like that, your main support on this chart is the 79 to 75K. Kind of anything in between that, a little bit of noise, really, if we have to be completely honest about the look of that situation. Okay, so let's get into some of these altcoins I'm going to cover in the stream. We've got ETH for you. I've got Sol. I've got Sui. I've got Tau. I've got Pendle. We're talking HYPE and ASTER. Are these things actually going to grind up before we can maybe short them? I'm going to show you a couple of big levels here on those guys. So let's talk about the big dog. And nice recovery. And I was saying in the Hackers Zoom this morning, like ETH is one of those things that actually rinses you less most of the time when the market is capitulating. And look what happened here. We pretty much held our lows. Okay, so 2796, that region started holding for ETH. And what is the game plan? So I'm currently sitting in an ETH long position, and I am getting a little bit edgy now that we are moving into this big danger zone. So you can see there's my ETH long. I'm 90K long at the moment. We can see we move into big zone, and you can see I've got a couple of shorts running, and I'm going to start explaining why I'm running some of these shorts here, because I am getting a little bit edgy. So what I'm looking at here is ETH on the 2 hour, and in terms of danger zones, I just want to point out here very clearly for you, why is this such a trouble area? Number one, we've got our local 382 and 0.5 rejection zones. Then we've got our VWAP from the highs on the 10th of December. Then we've got our 50-week moving average, which is a major support and resistance level. And we've also got our horizontals and undercarriage. So in terms of like a monster rejection zone for ETH, guys, I just want to stress this is a serious zone here. If we pump into that area, look for take profits. There's a high probability that we could end up in a fight here for ETH at around 3,000 to 3,100. And there's a possibility that this thing is going to then start rolling over. Okay, so look out over there. If we blow through 3,100 and we start finding support higher up in those levels, we can have a fresh look and start looking at some breakout trades or whatever we need to do. But right now, my current view is 3,000 to 3,1. That is a danger zone for us until proven otherwise. So just trade very safe in those areas. Let's look at Sol, and Sol's been an absolute surprise on a couple of fronts. Now, number one, we've printed double, triple bullish divergence. The blue lines are called triple divergence. So we got double, triple bullish divergence here on Sol. And quite interesting here, Solana didn't hold, or it did reclaim it, but this weekly support at 120 got absolutely tested here. And you can see Sol actually dropped down, tested just under 117. Now, again, I've got a very similar view here. What do we do with Sol? We can see this thing is grinding higher, but at some point we need to be careful. And the big zone for me for this weekend is 128 into 132. This is a big danger zone here for any Sol traders. Now, again, just like with ETH, if we start blowing higher and start forming a flag and stuff like that, we can have a fresh discussion here about potential breakouts and things like that. But right now, anyone that's sitting in longs that feeling a little bit edgy, maybe you've got some trauma over the last couple of days of getting chopped up. If you do push into that zone, 128 into this 132, guys, that is a trouble area. Okay, now there's you might be asking a question, why is he starting a head short already on Sol? Let me show you. There's a couple of ways that you can do these things. Now, number one, we can see our major time frame levels. Now, the issue I have is yesterday we had major time frame levels higher up, and the market just absolutely capitulated before it even hit those zones. So now, to protect myself, what I have done is I've gone in and I've created very local, on a much lower time frame, bear zones that I'm playing with now at the moment, just trying to protect myself a little bit in case the market does come and reject, because there is a strong possibility they can come and do it again to us and drop these tokens to new lows, and I want to be covered for myself, and I obviously want you guys to be covered as well. So what you can do once you understand, that Sol is potentially moving up into the big zones, you can then go into much lower time frames and you can start creating your lower time frame setup. So what I've done here is I've built a short and a long setup for you on Sol, considering, all things being equal, we might have a pump this weekend, we might have a bullish pullback and then start pushing higher. Remember what I said at the beginning of the stream, my sentiment is we should, in theory, trend higher for the next couple of days. And if that is the case, the first place the bulls want to be looking is going to be your local bull zones. Okay, we're going to look for bullish pullbacks in some of these good areas. Now, how do you do this? Very simply, guys, you drop your VWAPs under the lows, you drag your fibs to wherever this thing rejects, and that is going to create your local bull zone. And you can see right now for me, the local bull zone for Sol, 122 into 121. We are looking for some kind of action in that area. That would make a nice inverse head and shoulders as well. So that is quite a nice look for the bulls if we get a reasonable dip on Solana. Now, why am I looking at a current head short? Well, Quite simply, we've seen Sol push into this trend on the 15 minutes. You can see our oscillator is looking a little bit bearish at the moment. We're printing a little bit of divergence and things like that. So in order to protect myself, I am looking for this thing to roll over a little bit, and then I do have cover if that market does start dropping. Okay, so right now you can see the first mini bear zone is 126, and then the upper bear zone here at 120 ties in quite nicely with the first level on our higher time frame Sol chart at on that 4 hour at 128. Okay, so you can see the picture. That's the higher time frame short zone, and this is the little bear short zone that we are looking at now in case the market rolls over a little bit early. Okay, so guys, hopefully you get that picture, and these are pretty easy to map out. I'll make sure these charts in the 𝗏𝗏𝗃𝗃's Discord for you guys so that you can access them and you can see how I create these bear zones and these bull zones, and you can build them yourself. Okay, so let's get into 𝗬𝗰 and things like that as well. Now 𝗬𝗰's got the double bullish divergence. Again, if we just use the information in front of us, this should tell us that we should, in theory, trend higher. If you go back and you look at the amount of bullish divergence prints you get on 𝗬𝗰 on the 4 hour, it doesn't happen that often. You can see it's maybe once or twice a month, and it generally results in some decent upside in the market. Now, obviously, things have been extreme, or the conditions have been extreme lately, and it's been a little bit challenging. But what I want to highlight again for you guys is, if we start pushing higher, I've got your local bear zone, 1.5 into 1.56. I'm expecting a rejection in that area. This is quite a big danger zone here for 𝗬𝗰. Look at that, the VWAP there. Look at the undercarriage. Look at these 0.5s. That's a huge zone. If we explode this weekend, there's a high conviction short zone at 1.7 for 𝗬𝗰. Look at this. It's our macro 236. It's our horizontal. It's the 50-day MA. It's the VWAP from the highs. So 1.7 is a high conviction short zone if the market absolutely explodes this weekend. Be careful up there. Don't burn your fingers in those types of zones. Okay, so right now you can see 4 hour does say potentially higher up. What do we do? Again, lower time frame. Okay, how do we play this? So right now you can see I've started a 𝗬𝗰 hedge short. We are rejecting in a local bear zone. There's our 0.5 fib. There's our horizontals. It is looking like an early rollover at the moment for 𝗬𝗰. And the question is, how high can this thing go? And right now on the 4 hour does say 1.5 to 1.55. But to protect yourself on lower time frames, you can create these little local bear zones and local bull zones. So what I'm looking at now for the moment for 𝗬𝗰, you can see the 15-minute oscillator that is grinding down now. And once this thing starts bottoming out, I'm going to be looking for tie-in on what is hopefully going to be the local bull zone. If we lose the local bull zone, then we have to reassess where we are. But right now you can see in terms of 𝗬𝗰, if we start dropping down into 1.39, this could be a region of interest, even just under that zone 1.375. Anywhere there, you can look for some kind of action on the 𝗬𝗰. If they drop it there, we should see a reversal on that 15 minutes and then possibly some more upside. So local bull zone 140 into 139, maybe a little bit of a push lower down, but that is kind of what I'm looking for there on 𝗬𝗰. And then remember, don't get married to the stuff. Your upside regions 150, 155, 1.7 looking like the big trouble zones. Now let's look at a couple of higher time frame zones. This 𝗏 really playing games here, and just looks like it's trying to hold this 222. So I'm still sitting in this 𝗏𝗏𝗏, but I think what you have now is a very clear exit plan. If you close below these lows from earlier today, I think that is a good cut area. So 215 was the dump level from earlier today, and I'd say that is a reasonable cut zone. In terms of upside, guys, 255, I would say at best on 𝗏𝗏. Not going to look for much more than that. 255 looks like the best sort of area there for us, probably about a 10-11% move on that 𝗏𝗏𝗏. Let's look at AERO as well. This thing is completely eaten that AERO, that order block that we had yesterday that we were using for our bounce. So we're in that zone. We literally are in a bounce now. We'll cut it off. I'm still holding on to an AERO position here, guys. Your cut zone will be 456. If you close under 456, that looks like a reasonable exit plan. I am looking for a decent move. Doesn't have to be basically to the moon, but we can look for about a 10% here, maybe a 20% if things go well for us on this AERO. Okay, so want to see this hold, obviously. And then in terms of the oscillator, the daily is heavily overcooked here to the downside. So there are some possibilities. Then let's talk XRP. Also, where can we short? Where can we add to this XRP short? So you can see we've got the double bullish divergence for XRP. What does this mean for us? Well, it should, in theory, tell us we could move net up over the next day or so. In terms of short-term support, I would say watch 1.83. That is going to be a zone of interest. So if we do get a little dip before US Open today, maybe something in that region, 1.83 for the bulls, could be nice. Then if we push higher, guys, 1.96 into 203, that looks like a reasonable short zone. Okay, 1.96 into 203, that looks like a reasonable take profit zone, reasonable short zone. And for me, I'm holding that XRP short. I'm going to add to that short in that region, and all things being well, it should roll over there. And remember, if XRP is rolling over in that local bear zone, then you're probably going to see things like SUI rolling over in its local bear zone. The same with SOL, and potentially the same with ETH as well. Okay, so look out for those situations. Now, let's talk about Hyperliquid. This is an interesting one. And this could be a little bit of a suicide mission, but I have seen today that Hype and ASTER are showing a lot of strength. Now, the Nagel in the Discord was telling me today he was loving Hype. He actually front ran this zone a little bit here for us, and then he brought ASTER to my attention, and he showed me a lot of divergences on that ASTER chart. So I had a bit of a Hail Mary along the top situation earlier, and let's see if it's going to help. I'm going to show you, or let's see if it's going to work. I'm going to show you where my stops are, so you know exactly where the exit plan is. If you're going to do degen things, you're going to need to get some kind of degen stop on these guys. Okay, so just in terms of bigger picture, Hyperliquid has dropped down. They did front run my big area, which was this 21.5 zone. That obviously made a ton of sense to me, and I believe a lot of the big whales that were long Hyperliquid have now been liquidated. Okay, so again, I don't know if there's more to the downside. They could obviously come a little bit lower, and this is how we're going to protect ourselves. So in terms of the lower time frame, this is the current situation. You've got a nice move. You've got strong push on the 2 hour. Look at those reversal prints here on the 2 hour for Hyperliquid. That is looking relatively strong in terms of the oscillator. Now, if you want to play degen games, sometimes you can get chopped up a little bit. So I've literally longed the top of this current move, and the safest exit plan for me is going to be a close under either that 2 hour candle at 23.8, or you can use the previous one there at about 23.55. So that is going to be the degen play. And what is the game plan here? If there is momentum and it continues, I'm looking for an exit at 27.8. Okay, that is a high probability rejection zone. Let me just show you this trend. You can see that downtrend over there. So if this does start rolling over, guys, look out. That's a possible short zone in this region. And then I've got the absolute banger, 33.6. Not expecting that. If it does cook into that zone, guys, that is proper danger, 33.6. Right now, let's see if we can move up like 2%. Okay, then we'll figure it out after that. Okay, so there's Hype. And then let's talk ASTER as well. This thing also, I mean, this is crazy. I don't think I've ever seen this. The amount of reversal signs, and they're keeping this ASTER down. I don't know what is going on. But in terms of ASTER, I think we can all agree it's super manipulated, but maybe there is going to be one more push to the upside. I don't know. I've taken the long. Your stop options here on this thing close below. That would be 678, makes sense to me. Alternatively, you can look for a close below 67 on that guy. And then I am still looking for the short on ASTER, and that would be in around 82, or alternatively around 92, depending if there is momentum or not on this ASTER situation. Okay, so a little bit of degen play, just play safe. I have long these two, the twins on 𝗵𝗆𝗆 here at the moment. So I'm waiting for a little bit of action, but you can see the exit plan. Remember, just play safe, guys. Make sure you all have an exit plan. Both of them haven't hit yet. I've got 𝗏𝗏𝗏 that Panda gave me. I'm waiting for that short at 629. That still hasn't tapped. And then we've got 𝗏, which is sitting a little bit lower down here for us. And that order hasn't been pinged either. And that level was 32 on 𝗏. Okay, so my 2-bit trades, I'm waiting for these things to hit. The limit orders are set and waiting patiently. Okay, let's look at one or two more tokens for you guys. Oh, AVAX, this is sitting on a major level here, 11.8. This makes a ton of sense for even a short-term bounce in that zone. Okay, the exit plan is very simple, guys. It's going to be your close below today's low. So I would say 11 or 11.2. You start closing under that, it's looking a little bit filthy, in my opinion, for lower down. Same with Pendle, guys. I am in the Pendle long. No changes. This is a major weekly support zone. if we lose that, I think it's going to get dark. I think it's going to get pretty ugly down to about 124, looking a little bit rough to the downside. Okay, so guys, that is the deal with some of these tokens. You've got some short zones, you've got a plan, and what I want to say obviously is you can see like yesterday was crazy. We pumped into those zones, had a couple of late shorts, it fell over eventually. But, this market is choppy, and what I suggest to everybody is do some kind of hedging. Okay, so you guys can see I run a cross account. I'm trading on Bitget quite a lot, and I'm doing longs and shorts and things at the same time, and I'm just managing my risk as I go into these zones, and I'm going to be doing a workshop on that pretty soon. So just make sure you go sign up on Bitget. Go into the show description here. Let me just show you exactly where to find it. You're going to go into the show. You're going to go to the show description. You're going to click on more. Okay, sign up on Bitget, and or you can also do it on Bybit. Okay, so sign up on Bybit or Bitget here. I'm going to do a workshop for you guys. Obviously, if you're in the Chart Hackers Discord, that workshop is going to be absolutely free for you guys. I'm going to cover it for you, but I'm going to show you, how you can be long and short, and you can do these things. You can protect yourself along the way without taking brutal stop losses and things like that all the time. Okay, you can manage it, but I will talk about that in the Chart Hackers Discord. Okay. Guys, good luck this weekend. I am traveling, so you're not going to see much of me until probably Tuesday, I think, realistically. So that's why, it was important that I give you some of these big levels, especially to the upside. We got to assume that if we're pushing into those zones, we got to take profits there. We got to look for some hedge short plays. And if the market capitulates again, guys, I'll be dropping some updates on X. I'll obviously drop updates in the Chart Hackers Discord. It might be from my phone, but I'll make sure you guys are well covered with a couple of levels. Okay, so be safe out there, guys, and we'll see you later.